Welcome to the third chair. Peter's our guest this week, as he was a while ago, which might have been last week.
Yeah,
I don't know what
could have
day
been
it
last
is.
year. We don't know when
No,
this episode's
no,
going to
no,
air.
So, you grew up in Canada. Did you pay much attention to the U.S. when you were growing up? You know, like, you know it was there because did you visit it a few times?
Yeah, I did some band trips to Washington State and Oregon. And I remember in 1976, there was a very brief time when the Canadian dollar was worth more than
I
the
remember
U.S.
that
dollar.
because I lived in Grand Forks, North Dakota, which
Yeah.
is 75 miles south of the Canadian.
Yeah,
border.
it wasn't much. It was like $1.05 to $1.
Yeah.
But it was one of the few times where the Canadian dollar was worth more than the American dollar.
And that within the realtors in not the realtors, the people who own the stores were very happy in our town because a lot of Canadians came down on those Canadian holidays.
Yeah, that's true.
And the hotels were happy because it was Friendly Manitoba, it said on their license plates. We'd go driving through the
Yeah, sure.
parking lot and they say, "Oh, the Friendlies are in town."
Well, that was at a time though as well when, you in Canada you basically had ABC, NBC, CBS,
So you had all
and,
those
and
stations.
then CBC, the Canadian Broadcasting
I remember
Corporation.
watching CBC when we
Yeah.
got cable.
And it was, the big thing growing up. You remember Hockey Night in Canada on Saturday. That was almost
And
like
they
a
had that
national
song.
ritual.
That song was good.
That was
Hockey
it,
night.
Yeah, and I remember the time because where I was, you'd have the Bugs Bunny Roadrunner Hour on for 1 hour right before Hockey Night in Canada.
Oh my goodness! So this is like the ultimate doubleheader, right?
It was like a double
Bugs
header.
Bunny and then hockey.
And for many years, all you got was hockey. That was either the Toronto Maple Leafs or the Montreal Canadiens. Eventually, the Vancouver Canucks came in, and eventually Calgary and Edmonton and Winnipeg. But that's my memory of growing up. We did a lot of summer vacations in Washington. On the coast, there were some great campsites. And so we were aware of what was going on in the U.S., but I would say, moderately so. Canada had its own sort of things that got big attention. And it's strange looking back, like 1972. It was the first time that Canada played the Russians in ice hockey.
Well, that was big
The
here too.
World Summit. I forget what they called it.
At least for me.
Yeah, and Canada won that series when Paul Henderson scored the game-winning goal in Game 8 with the series tied otherwise to give the Canadians a win.
Yeah.
And he became a national hero for happened to being lucky when a loose puck came to him and he shot it in the goal.
Well, it's the same word for Michael Rosioni, and then you got
Yeah, exactly. It's the same sort of thing.
he
Almost
got the puck at the right time, and he threw it at the net, and it went in.
Yeah, it was amazing.
I mean, you got a lot of guys take these good shots, and they get saved, and his almost looked like I'm going to hit it real quick and try to get the rebound, and it went in the net.
Yeah, I mean, that's legendary in Olympic hockey.
Both of those goals were very big goals.
Yeah. And then in Canada, I think it was 1972 as well, Bobby Fischer playing Spassky in chess was like all over the headlines. That was a big deal. For the nerds.
So you were a nerd at the time, huh?
I would say I was a little bit of a nerd. Good student. Science for the most part. Didn't get in trouble, for the most part.
A lot of people in Winnipeg, they would complete a sentence and they go A. Was that is prevalent in Western Canada, or is that just a local thing?
I would say yes, probably as prevalent. although even when I speak, sometimes I have certain words that if people don't know I'm from Canada, they think I'm from Minnesota or Wisconsin or North Dakota.
Yeah,
You
because
know,
we do for at least North Dakota, there's something at the end of the sentence.
well, I'm also thinking of words like
Something like it.
out and about.
Same thing with Maine. People, especially the northern part of Maine, there's very close to the Canadian sound as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, then there was something in North Dakota
Now,
close to.
one thing that drove me crazy growing up that I didn't appreciate how much of a problem it was until I came to the U.S. is in Vancouver, at the universities and whatnot, half your professors were British and half were American, and some Canadians too. And so for the most part, you learned British English with the spellings, with the slang that's different, some of the grammar's different. And then you come to the U.S. and like it's radically different. And I find even after 40 years out of Canada, still catch myself writing British English or British grammar. And it wasn't until I look back and think, wow, there really are a lot of differences.
That's why they have English to English dictionaries.
Well, I've used Upwork and Fiverr for some projects, and I've had writers in different parts of the world, and you send your script, and your spell check goes crazy. And so there's just so many differences, even with people speaking English, whether it's the accent or the understanding of slang or other idioms. Like for instance, in British English, or if you're in the UK, if you wanted to take a patient to the operating room, someone would say, get a trolley and take him to the theater. It's like, why is this patient that needs an operation going to the theater? And here you'd say, get a gurney and take him to the operating room to watch a movie.
But, some of us have learned, because some of us watch shows that have been made in Britain and things like that. And I used to watch some shows from Canada when I basically not until college, because that's when we got cable. And we would get a couple Canadian channels.
Yeah.
That's part of our cable package.
Well, even if you watch some of the early James Bond movies that were made in Britain and had primarily Britain stars, and you listen to the script, you can catch it, M telling Bond, you screwed up and you were in hospital. It's like, well, you were in the hospital, or you just catch things that is more local.
You go to the doctor, British. You go to surgery.
Yeah.
And that's your regular
surgery.
doctor.
Even with the veterinarian.
Mm-hmm.
Because one of the things, a popular show, it was on public TV, which was, we finally were able to get clearly when we got cable, was All Creatures Great and Small. I don't know if that...
I've heard of it, yeah.
Yeah, and that... It was a British show, and it was very popular here. And but you learned a lot of veterinary, go to the surgery with it. Well, yeah, they do surgery in there, but they do other things. But
yeah, and there's words that are spelled so different, like pediatrician. They have an extra A.
I never spelled pediatrician.
Or esophagus. There's an O in the front instead of just ES. And then they use S's and Z's very differently. So like realized would be with an ISED rather than an IZED.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, that's good. And
we'll talk about more of this while we're reading. Yeah.
Which is why sometimes I'm confused, or I choose weird sayings. It's still with me after all these years.
We'll be back. Welcome to the third chair. We're getting delirious here.
Yep.
Peter's been a bad influence on us.
Take a look at this. Here's what happens between takes.
They say
Yeah.
anti. How do they say it? I'm blanking on how they say it, but they don't say anti venom. Yeah.
Audio 1, and never say shag to Australian.
Or
Audio
fag.
2.
That's a cigarette.
Yeah, shag is Mike Myers. You want a shag, baby?
Audio, camera mic, camera red light, third chair, Peter episode, segment 8.
That little pre-segment's going to have to be on there too.
Which pre-segment?
Talking about shagging.
Shags.
Yes.
Yeah, it's all Peter's fault.
Well, there's so many other words, like especially like I used to say capillary instead of capillary. You know, what route are we driving instead of route? Aluminium sometimes instead of
Root in
aluminum.
Australia means something else similar to what was on the
Yeah.
in the middle of our segment.
Yeah, so many words. Schedule instead of schedule.
And the Irish have a few of their own words.
Yeah,
One guy talked to, we saw him on the street in Northern Ireland, I think he had visited the pub more for the liquid refreshments before he talked to us, and he started selling some of those words, and I'm like, okay, thank you.
yeah, it's amazing how everyone can speak English and we can totally not understand each other.
That's right. But so what was your biggest challenge when you came having to do with the U.S.? I mean, not with the medical program, but your biggest challenge besides language when you came to the U.S. and like, wow,
well, the language was one of them because,
yeah,
thinking you understood what a common phrase meant in the culture that seemed so silly, but it was just so totally different. Like, for instance, I grew up drinking hot tea, British tea, and really drank very little iced tea. And so in Canada, if you go to McDonald's and you say, I want a tea, they give you hot tea.
no,
So I remember being in Oklahoma, going to McDonald's one morning, asking for a tea and getting a big, thing with a straw and ice and whatnot. I realized, oh man, I have to be careful to know if what I'm saying actually means what I'm saying. So that was a little tricky. That wasn't too bad.
And then in this country, it's so big that from one region to another,
I remember.
bless your heart does not mean nice things if you're in the South.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember my boss, he said this auditor was trying to explain what the other person's doing wrong, and this person didn't think they were doing wrong. And they were both from the South, and he says, it's amazing how good they are at saying such polite things, but they're having an argument. You know they're having an argument, but I mean, if you read it as a script, you would think they're all being polite to each other, but...
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but even some of those differences, like the tea example I gave, if you're in the Midwest, like Ohio, I spent 12 years in Ohio, if you are at a restaurant and you ask for a tea, they will give you unsweetened iced tea. But if you go, to North Carolina or the South, you ask for a tea, you automatically get
Diabetes.
Yeah, extremely sweet tea.
Some of them will ask you.
Some of them will, but
I think they do that
the
more
general
nowadays than they did in the past years, because they know a lot of people don't want the sugar.
Yeah.
They can tell you're a northerner.
Yeah. Yeah.
A damn Yankee coming out.
And in the South, everything is a Coke. It's just according to what kind of Coke you want.
Yeah, that was so funny.
You mean like Sprite Coke?
My dad came down and we visited my brother. He was going to Old Miss, and so we were in Oxford, Mississippi. And he comes up to this young lady. He says, "Where's your pop?" Meaning soda pop.
Mm-hmm.
And she's looking at him like he's nuts. And my brother comes running up. Where's your Coke?
Yeah. Oh, that was another one. Growing up, we called soda pop. Yeah, it was pop. It was POP.
Yeah, I guess because we did too.
Yeah, exactly. And
we're
it was
closer
like,
to Canada.
and I'd be with my classmates in Oklahoma, and I'd say, "Let's go get a pop to drink," and they'd look at me like, "What are you talking about?"
You gotta bring
soda.
your old man along
Soda.
to get a
Yeah, exactly. And there were all sorts of examples like that. I can't think of them all off the top of my head.
See, I would have understood you when you said pop.
That's right, but you grew up in North Dakota.
Yeah.
Yeah. We didn't have Dr. Pepper for the most part in Canada, so that was kind of new.
That's interesting.
We had Mr. Pibb.
Oh,
which
okay.
is,
Which was similar. Very
Yeah,
similar.
but it was just what you had. Another big thing that was a shock was how massively college football at the time dominated the news cycles.
It still does in a lot of parts of the country.
Yeah, I mean,
if you went to Oklahoma now.
Oh yeah. It's like a major war's broken out, and there'll be
Kentuckians will kill you over college football.
Yeah, and then I also discovered college basketball was really massive as well.
College basketball has never hit in Colorado. Football will be big again, especially because CU got Deion Sanders, and I think he's already 2-0. I think he's gonna turn the CU program around, and it's gonna become bigger.
Weren't they pretty horrible last year?
They've been horrible since.
But he's a tough coach, and if you don't show up for practices,
well, he knows how to
you're not on the
win.
team
He's a
anymore.
winner.
Yeah.
He knows how to win.
Yeah, because he's nice to the kids and everything, but you better be doing what he says, or else he's not going to be as nice.
Yeah. So in Canada, hockey totally dominated the sports news. There's a Canadian.
That's what people don't understand. Like when I was in North Dakota, hockey was the big sport.
Yeah. North Dakota is one of the big states for college players, and it's even bigger now than it was. The hockey, and then there was the Canadian Football League, which was.
I watched a lot of that on TV.
And then when the Montreal Expos and the Toronto Blue Jays got a team, baseball was talked about a little bit more, but
It's probably not a big sport up there.
it really wasn't.
Because in Montreal, they left, and in Toronto, they were big for a few years when they won the World Series in the 90s and before that, but afterwards, they're not as like they used to be.
Yeah, no. But again, the surprise for me was both. You'd have a half an hour news broadcast, and they'd talk about Sooner football for 25 minutes. Then 5 minutes about the war raging.
Oklahoma is big in football.
Yeah.
I mean, Texas high school games sold out.
Mm.
I mean, they would go play. When I was down there, we drove up because people I worked with, they live in San Antonio. We drove up. It was a playoff game, but we drove up to Texas Stadium from San Antonio, like 100 miles, to watch the high school football team play in a high school playoff game. I mean, and we weren't even like parents or anything. This guy followed the team, and I said, oh yeah, I'll go. There were 4 of us that went. I'll go with you on Saturday and go watch them play football in Austin. Yeah.
Well, another big difference from Oklahoma was the crazy fork lightning that it would have in the summer storms.
And we have our share of lightning here.
Well, we do, but it's not. It's more like flash. some fork lightning, but this was like when you see the pictures of fork lightning over Kansas, there was a lot of that. And then we had a bunch of tornadoes too. I slept through a tornado one night. I went to bed and my curtains were horizontal from the wind blowing. And the next day in church, people were asking me, were you in the survival shelter or in the bathtub with a mattress over your head? And I was like, no, I was in my bed resting peacefully. And it was like you slept through a giant tornado that came through.
They're probably mad at you.
Or jealous. Yeah.
Okay, we are going to talk about hobbies in the next section.
Real people, real stories, real life. We're looking for guests. We're looking for you here on the third chair. I'm Peter, that's Doug, and how many different ways can we have guests?
Oh, at least 3. We can have them here in the studio in Colorado Springs. We've had guests all the way from LA on Zoom, and we have gone on location, and we got our 3rd one already in the planning phase.
Awesome. Send us an email and we'll get you on the show.
We have a few guests from 9 Rounds on here, and one of the reasons why is you are a member and you go out there and work how many times a week?
Usually 3.
3 times?
Yeah.
I recall him getting beat up and you and I eating a hamburger.
Yeah,
that was
crazy.
Good hamburger.
Yeah, we've had several of the trainers on, as well as the owner, Melissa.
I went with you once. That is quite a workout.
Yeah, you did real well. I was really impressed.
One time I was like, slow up. I was getting really tired, and the guy comes up and says, "You can do better. Go faster."
Yeah.
He caught me right away. I'm like, "Oh shoot!"
I should have brought you a hamburger.
Yeah. Well, I don't.
I don't think he would have let you bring it in at that time.
I haven't reached all my goals yet. I still sometimes watch myself on camera and say, I still look too chunky on camera. So I have, a goal of losing more fat and continue to build. But
Peter, we have a special filter on your side. It makes you look heavier. We did it on purpose.
Great.
Yeah. Doug has been putting.
But there was a time that I was over 300 pounds. And I'm down below 250 now.
That's pretty good.
I've kept the weight off, and so.
But you got some muscle on you because you do work out. You could see that. I mean, it's not.
Yeah, I don't look like Mr. Olympia, but.
Yeah, but I mean that's part of the weight.
Well, that's true, but it's so important that we exercise. I mentioned in the first episode that. I'm in a long-term recovery from alcohol use disorder and substance use disorder, and exercise is really critical in maintaining that.
You also walk with your grandson and your dog.
Yeah, or they walk me. Yeah, I love. I love taking my grandson and my dog.
But that's a good.
Yeah. That's a good exercise, yeah.
Yeah, I try to do 10,000 steps a day.
Yeah, you do really well with that.
But he keeps attaching it to one of his dogs to scare the dog.
Yeah,
I like my dogs. Sometimes they'll be sleeping and I'm trying to do my steps and they wake up and look at me and then they're like, I'm going to go sleep.
One of the things that working out, doing a kickboxing, now at the kickboxing studio,
workout,
but we're not punching each other. Sometimes we hit the trainers with pads because no one wants a concussion and have to, miss work or whatever.
Those concussions can be pretty bad.
Yeah, they sure can, surprisingly. But it's amazing when you have someone push you, what you find out that you can go further and harder than you thought. Yeah. And it's helpful, particularly when you're learning to deal with urges like to use an inappropriate substance again. You learn that urges and pain can just pass, and that you don't have to respond to them. And so, when I have a young trainer, someone in their 20s, telling me to do more push-ups, and my arms are killing me with lactic acid. But you realize, yeah, you're having some pain in your arms and you're tired, but you know you can still go farther, and then
It's
it
good to go
passes.
farther, yeah.
And then it's just really good, I think, especially as we get older, we have a tendency to sort of think we know everything and figure it out, and have figured everything out. And I think it's good to be in a place where you allow yourself to be appropriately coached by younger people, and just sort of maintaining that I'm still coachable, willing to consider new ideas, new things, being pushed a new way. I think that's good for us when we get older. But yeah, so I also lift weights at Planet Fitness.
Okay.
And sometimes there's a trainer there that I work with too.
So do you do that in addition and a couple of times a week with that?
Yeah, I'm usually working out 5 times a week, and then sometimes I get my 10,000 steps in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So how do you push yourself to 10,000 steps? Because you don't.
I've wrecked 2 Fitbits.
You read
So, yeah.
What do you do? Shake them up?
Well, I wore them to kickboxing.
Oh.
And when I was punching the
that
heavy bag, I think it was jarring the parts inside.
Yeah, that's probably not good for a Fitbit.
Yeah, so
unfortunately.
sometimes if I use Runkeeper, I can
Yeah,
track
Fitbits aren't
distance.
good for everything because if you ride your bike, you're not going to get anything for a Fitbit.
That's right.
But that's a really good exercise.
Yeah, and that's what I also discovered. You can stand and kick a heavy bag, and you're totally exhausted.
Oh yeah,
And it
that's a
says
good
like you took
exercise.
7 steps.
Because but it's not counting your steps. But
Yeah.
I don't know if it does a good job of recording your calories at that time. or
They
not.
base it on heart rate, and so it'll give you.
So
it'll
because
give you
you're really pushing when you do that, so you should get the
Yeah.
calories in.
Yeah, when I use it to measure calories, usually the workout half an hour plus and minus half an hour plus a couple of extra minutes. It's between a 300 and 400 calorie workout.
They say swimming is one of the best exercises, especially when you're older, because the water is easier on your knees
Yeah.
and your body and stuff, and you can push yourself without wrecking your body.
Yeah, but I've wrecked 7 Fitbits taking it in the pool.
Yeah.
They're not
So,
waterproof.
I was going to say the Fitbit's not good for that, but I guess you're still working on testing that theory, huh?
Yeah, I haven't got to
I
figure
don't
it
think
out.
we're going to get them to come on as a sponsor if we're talking about how you can wreck them.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and sadly, I've been at some other kickboxing clubs where sometimes the young instructors are having the older people trying to do things too fast. Like, okay, kick this heavy bag 10 times as fast as you can, and you see people quit because they develop orthopedic problems.
Yeah, because the body does get somewhat delicate. I mean, I
Yeah.
drink a fairly good amount of milk, but I'm still on, they still want me to do calcium
Yeah.
too.
I love drinking milk, but
I do
unfortunately it's got a lot of calories.
I drink 1%.
Yeah, I drink usually because I buy it for it has to be okay for Zeke and different people, but usually 2%. But
Now, a lot of people
but I just
tell me-
enjoy it. I mean,
A lot
like
of people say they can't do 1%, but I can do.
I sometimes find that I just enjoy it so much. It's nothing to drink 7 or 8 glasses, and that's where you're piling on a bunch of, and 700 and 800 calories. So I have to watch that, but I really enjoy a glass of milk.
I do too.
Yeah,
But it's good with unfortunately, I haven't done this in a while because I'm trying to get rid of the bread, but, a good donut, it's glazed donut, especially good, and a glass of milk,
yeah, that's
or a
good.
good cookie.
or a good cookie. that's
chocolate
good.
chip cookie.
I went
Yeah.
to this hotel in Chicago. I was on a baseball tour with my friend, and he was diabetic, so he couldn't do the cookie. But I don't know what they did, because usually you get milk at the hotel,
Yeah,
and it's warm or something, so
Yeah.
it's not as good. This, they had the right temperature. It was, my friend kept drinking, and he's diabetic, and and then they had these cookies that were really good. So I'm like, and this hotel's like, oh, this is so good.
Yeah.
The milk and cookies, but it's hard to tell somebody like how good it was because they're saying, you had milk and cookies at a hotel and they were really good. You're kind of crazy, man.
You know, growing up, the other thing I always had a glass of milk with was with a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. It seemed to be really common.
Well, wash the peanut butter down.
Yeah, as well as the peanut butter. Well, you know, now sometimes I catch myself because my problem is that I don't drink enough water. And here at elevation, where we are in Colorado,
it's important.
Yeah, it's so easy to
even
get
more important.
mildly dehydrated. And it's like, I reach for the milk rather than I should drink 5 glasses of water first. Yeah.
Yeah, I include, I'm trying to do a routine. I'm trying to get, not doing the pops or the sodas or the Cokes or stuff like that, where I do water and then I'm combining it with milk and 1% milk and then a diet. I'm trying to do a diet drink with Orpheans. Is that what it is?
With what?
With the stuff like Gatorade has in it.
Uh-huh.
I can't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I always know when you're cutting back. I can tell when you've booked a cruise before you announce it because I see you in training. Like we have some business meetings and stuff that we go to, and I catch you. You know, you're drinking water and you having a small bowl of chili rather than a
I
giant
have to do
burger.
it more often now.
Yeah. I say, I caught him. He's training for the cruise.
Yeah,
Needs to drop some
do
weight
it
before he
outside the
goes
cruise
and
training.
puts it back on. Yeah.
Okay, next we are going to talk about,
A break.
after break, about your playing with your grandchild,
All right.
besides taking walks with him.
All right. Sounds good. Hi, I'm Peter from Pikes Peak Recovery Coaching, and as you know, I do help people with drug and alcohol recovery issues. I love to help people get better, but I also offer a variety of other services, including regular life coaching services. I've helped several people write and finish a book. I've helped a doctor that was in medical school graduate and then get into a residency. And I also actually have quite a background in mathematics, and I do some math tutoring for the GED as well as the ASVAB for those that are thinking about a career in the military. So my contact information is on the screen. Please send me an email or a text, and we can talk about some of these services and how I can help. That's Peter Grigg at Pikes Peak Recovery Coaching.
Now, you spend a lot of your time with your grandson, and I know you do more than walk around, so
Yeah, that's true.
what else do you...
Well, we've got some routines. Like, for instance, if he goes with me to church on Sunday, afterwards we go to one park to play, followed by getting a donut, followed by getting some sort of lunch, followed by a second
So
park
the
to
donut-
go to.
Oh, that's a pretty good deal. That's a pretty good Sunday for him.
Yeah, and then I run him
So
so hard that
the donut is the appetizer.
it's the appetizer. And sometimes it's only half a donut, split one. But I like he officially has given up naps. He's almost 5, but I love to run him so hard at the park that he's just ready to fall over asleep.
So how old is he?
Just about 5 in October.
So
I remember you asking him when we were over at your house, you want to go to church? No. We got to go to the park and a donut? Yes.
Yeah, well, there's a little bribery going on. But who
yeah, but
knows?
sometimes you do that with kids.
Sometimes you do that with kids. Yeah, and we it's been fun. I've let him. I've got a little wiener dog named Peach, and we'll walk the dog together. And I remember he was at 3. It's like, I want to walk the dog. I want to hold the leash. And he was barely able, strength-wise and balance. And now that he's almost 5, he can do it no problem. He can control Peach and not get pulled over.
We had this dog, and she barked all the time, and she was with anybody she see besides us, she would go get. she was like 30, 35 pounds. And so Amanda was like 5, and she said, I want to walk her. So I said, okay, here you go. Because we were camping, and we were just coming back to the camper. We thought, well, there'd be nothing here. So she went. And somebody came, and the dog went wild and started running, and Amanda's running. And then she fell because the ground wasn't even, and she wasn't the most graceful kid anyway. And so she fell, and the dog kept running, and the dog ran over a tree stump, and Amanda got pulled over a tree stump, but she's still holding on to the leash. And she held on to the leash all the time, and I'm like, wow, you did really good holding on to the leash.
Yeah. Unfortunately, fortunately, my grandson lives with us. So my daughter and he lives with us, and it's just such an amazing blessing to be able to spend time with him and encourage him. And this last week or so, I've had a couple of friends that have died. One very unexpectedly my age, and one that was a little older that was coming, but still. And I've just reflected how, particularly even with grandchildren and your own children, you want to say what's important to say to them while you have a chance, and encourage them often while you have the chance, because kids grow up, kids move out, people die, and sometimes you look back and say, damn, I sure wish I had told that person how I felt about them while they're alive.
Mm-hmm. So it's when your grandson is running through the park, and do you ever race him? And can you still beat him?
It's not really close. He moves pretty fast now, and I don't. But sometimes I take Peach, and she has no idea what's going. I put her on this 20-foot leash, and we go to the football field, and I say, Peach, get ready, and we do like a wind sprints. And of course,
so how far do you go?
I'll sprint 100 yards.
You sprint 100
my
yards?
idea of a sprint, and then walk back slowly. And of course, Peach is just gliding and leaping, and it's fine. And I'm huffing and puffing.
Well, I sprint to the refrigerator.
Yeah, I've done that too, Doug. Yeah.
So if someone wanted to get a hold of you for your businesses, how would they do?
Just my cell, 719-694-4777. You can text me.
And you can also watch your shows, your podcast of your...
Yeah, I've got a YouTube channel, Dr. Second Chance.
Dr. Second Chance.
Yeah, that's about recovery. And, in the next few months, I'm going to be changing the name of my coaching company. That's going to reflect me doing more life coaching than recovery coaching. And so that'll be something to be looking for. And there'll be contact information with that when I redo that. Well,
and that's going to be the third chair for this week. So, how do you say that? Like,
share,
subscribe, share.
And don't forget to hit the notification bell icon so you know when Producer Doug has uploaded another episode.